What's up, guys? Chris from Review Cave here, back again, attempting, mind you, to do a weekly RWBY review. Now, one thing I want to state is that this is not a definite thing yet. It depends on whether or not people actually watch these videos, as well as how long it'll take me to get my recordings out and editing the videos. There's not going to be anything too special or flashy in regards to this video or any of these reviews, primarily because it'll take a long time and I want to upload them by the next day. So take that as you will. Now, RWBY Volume 8, Episode 1, Divide, is honestly not a bad premiere. While it's not super action-packed like Volume 6 and Volume 7 had, it had an interesting beginning and also a decent amount of setup for what we can see for what will happen later on in the volume. So let's go beat by beat, and I'll give you my general impressions of each scene as they play out. Note, I will not be using clips, because then I will get copyright strikes or claims, and my video will be blocked, stuff like that. Rooster Teeth is like that. So I will just be showing some snapshots from scenes, depending on what I'm talking about. So, we begin Volume 8 with Cinder and Neo heading towards Cinder in the Grim Whale to give over the Relic of Knowledge. Now, in all honesty, Neo has not seen all this stuff before, so she is honestly very surprised, and you can tell by the look on her face. And they are being allowed through, primarily because either Salem honestly senses Cinder coming through the Grim Arm, or maybe Cinder has some connection to the Grim, which allows her to cloak herself due to the Grim Arm she has or something. I'm not entirely sure, but it is something that is worthy of discussion. There's also a flashback that I forgot to get a snapshot for that presumably shows Cinder's past when she was younger. So I am curious to see, because we might actually get a full-on Cinder flashback and backstory in this volume. So it's something I am really excited to see. We make it to Salem's chamber, which I'm not going to lie, I am liking the design of the Grim Whale as an actual fortress and not really much of a Grim, because there's a lot of stuff in it that makes it look like it is more of a fortress than an actual monster due to how the layout of the inside was. So, Cinder kneels down and presents the Relic of Knowledge to Salem with a really interesting choice of words by Salem, saying that when I entrusted you to become the vessel for the Maiden Powers, I expected nothing less. Pretty much saying that she had high expectations, and that she trusts that Cinder would not have come back empty-handed, which she then ends up giving Salem the relic, which I do like. And Cinder does take all the credit, too much to Neo's disappointment and anger, pretty much. Tyrion walks by, little back and forth banter between Cinder and Tyrion. Tyrion saying that just because Cinder managed to outsmart Ironwood does not essentially make her that much smarter than him. It just shows how vastly underrated his own intelligence is. So, yeah, Tyrion basically trying to knock Cinder down a peg is the usual kind of thing. We then end up seeing them talk that even despite Tyrion losing Watts, they basically call it a necessary sacrifice, which is an interesting thing because they probably assume that he's dead. So that's something I'm curious about. But yeah, Watts is gone, but we can assume that he's going to play a role in this volume regardless, despite him being, in prison. We then see Emerald, Mercury, and Hazel walk into the throne room, and I'm liking Mercury the design, not so much Emerald and Hazel's. They could be better, honestly, but yeah, not too fond of it. So we do get to see that Emerald wants to go up to Cinder, and because she's really happy that Cinder's finally back. However, Cinder tells Emerald to stay there and stuff like that, so I'm assuming maybe something else could happen. I'm not entirely sure why Cinder is saying this. Perhaps she's still disappointed in herself, or maybe she's somehow disappointed in Emerald for something. I don't know. But anyway, we move on to what's going to happen next. So, in all honesty, Cinder does end up bringing up the point that despite her failing to obtain the Winter Maiden powers back during all the chaos and Penny managing to take the powers from under her, she offers to go back and take the powers from Penny. I mean, she is still a new maiden, so it is very possible that since Cinder has more experience with her power, she can beat Penny in a one-on-one fight. Possibly, there's no guarantees. But Salem interestingly says no, which I'm curious to see what is going on with that. Because one would assume that she would want both the relic and the mating powers because they can't get access to the vault without the powers of the Winter Maiden, so that is an interesting thought process. I mean, it is very possible that Salem is expecting something to happen where Penny will just come right to them, or maybe she just wants to take over Atlas before of trying to find it, or wasted effort or manpower or whatever. I'm not entirely sure. So it seems she might be giving a command to the Whale Grim for some reason, or maybe the other Grim, but we just have to wait and see. We leave this scene, meet up with Oscar, who might be in some sort of slums outside of Mantle, which is something. And he then gets picked up by Ruby, who manages to find him by chance. I'm not going to lie, it would have been better if Oscar was walking around Mantle fighting Grim, and then Ruby shows up right in that instance. That would have been a much better way for them to meet up. But yeah, that happens. Oscar tells them how much of how he felt like an idiot for thinking that the general would understand what's going on or to help them, which it's not a mistake. You tried your best. It's how things are. So no need to blame yourself when it comes to that. But once they get into a bar where the Happy Huntresses, one of the Happy Huntresses leaders are, they end up discussing what they're going to do. The Happy Huntresses are planning to evacuate Mantle to the chasm beneath Atlas, but it's dangerous. However, it is warm because from last volume, thanks to Watts, Mantle has lost all of its heat. And now with the Grim pouring in and Atlas not being able to send aid due to Ironwood basically abandoning the place, it makes sense why they'd want to do everything they can for the citizens. So this is where the major conflict of this episode comes into play, where the group splits up again. So RWBY wants to get Amity Coliseum up and running so that they could actually, signal the rest of the kingdoms about Salem and warn them, as well as see if they could send any aid to them. Because, let's face it, they won't be able to fight off a Grim army of that magnitude on their own. But Yang wants to basically stay and help Mantle because that's who they have to help right this instant. Which also makes sense. Which ends up leading to them thinking how they're going to do this. Pietro says that they need access from General Ironwood's terminal in order for Amity Coliseum to be up and running. They think it's impossible, but there's actually a way to get to a terminal that is close to Mantle, which is actually an Elysian military base at the base of Atlas. So, the groups are being split up as RWBY, Blake, Weiss, Nora, and Penny, while Yang, Jean, Ren, and Oscar go to help out the people as much as they possibly can, and RWBY's group will go and try and get access to Ironwood's terminal so they can actually turn Amity Coliseum up. But I do want to say Yang actually got a really good moment as she called out RWBY's decision making. She literally says that when we got here, we said that we were going to follow your lead. But as we can see, it hasn't exactly worked out for us as of late. And I have to commend the writers for having Yang, the older sister, say this to RWBY, who is the younger sister, as well as their leader. So it shows that RWBY is not a perfect leader, and that Yang isn't above questioning her own sister's way of doing things if it means doing what she thinks is right. So it is nice because it gives them a bit of conflict and also gives Yang and RWBY a good chance of interaction and stuff like that. Because we knew from last volume, Yang was not really keen to lie to the general and everyone else. So yeah, I like that someone pointed this out. So the team split off. And while RWBY and her group were on the roof, Ironwood ends up calling Penny. They answer. Ironwood wants Penny to come back to Atlas to protect her. He says he's worried of her safety, which, yes, that is kind of true because she has the maiden powers. If she dies for some reason, it might get transferred to someone at random, or it could be one of Salem's forces, like Emerald or, God forbid, Cinder. It makes sense, but then RWBY takes it and says, look, we're going to save Mantle, and Ironwood snaps at her, saying, are you still worried about Mantle? Salem is a threat to all of Remnant. We need to get Atlas out of here so that we can end up helping everyone else later down the road. We got to think of the future. Now look, Ironwood's way of thinking is not wrong, but it's also not right. That's something we've established in last volume. But after this conversation, we cut to Ironwood and the Aesops and Winter. The Aesops are mourning Clover's death, which is obvious. Harriet is especially angry. Now, we know Harriet is prone to anger from what we saw in the last volume, but this is something new. It's possible maybe she had feelings for Clover or something, or maybe she looked up to Clover like an older brother or something like that. This is honestly a really good chance to humanize and also expand on, well, the Aesops. They haven't had much screen time. The only ones that really got fleshed out was Clover and Marrow for like a few extra minutes than everyone else. So there's that. But yeah, I am curious to see how the Aesops are going to react to all the situations and everything, and who their new leader will be now that Clover is gone. It'll most likely be Winter. She is the most capable fighter amongst all of them, so it makes a lot of sense. Which is a good segue for me to talk about Ironwood and Winter's conversation. Which, in all honesty, is interesting because they talk about, well, how they're going to get through all this. Ironwood is concerned with the fact that no one has seen a grim invasion of this magnitude before, and he has no idea how to basically save everyone now, because honestly the only real way for him to save everyone in Atlas is to move it using the relic, but he needs Penny. He then goes on to tell Winter that he'll do whatever it takes to protect Atlas. Then the two members of the council show up, and because they heard about the whole thing with Martial Law and abandoning the rest of Mantle. So Ironwood saying that he'll do whatever it takes. He goes out and shoots the guy from the council, and assumably kills him based off the reactions of everybody. With the episode ending with Salem presenting the Relic of Knowledge to a Grimm that presumably is going to go off and essentially find Oscar because she wants to ask Jin a question, but has no idea how to ask the question. And we can assume that this is going to be the major conflict on Yang's group's part. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But yeah, that was pretty much the whole episode, and I have to say, not bad. Pretty good beginning. I liked the introduction of Salem and her group in all of their glory, as well as having all of our forces in one spot. So we can see all of both sides essentially confronting each other. But remember, Ironwood is also after Team RWBY, so it's probably going to be like a three-way fight. Unless they actually be smart about this and team up against Salem. But yeah, all in all, not a bad episode. I really did like it. And also, the opening was really, really fun. I liked it. It really does play off the fact that this is actually meant to be the climax of this whole Atlas arc saga thing that they have going. Which I'm curious to see how it's going to play out, because it looks like we're going to see our heroes face like the biggest point of despair that they'll have, because this is by far the thing that they would have to end up fighting at some point. So I am curious to see how this volume could end. There's also this one really nicely shot scene with Oscar surrounded by Grimm, basically in terror and possibly pain, with Salem hovering over him in like some kind of new form with these Grimm wings and everything. So that honestly looks pretty cool, and I'm curious to actually see that. So I'm wondering when this is, because this is basically like final form boss fight type of deal. So again, curious to see how this plays off. But yeah, honestly, I really do like the opening. It's possible that we might see our teammates like go against each other so they can eventually team up at the end of the volume, but it's still too early to tell. I might do weekly chapter reviews from this point onward, but it depends on how long it takes me to record, as well as edit the video and get the images for the video. But yeah, with all that said and done, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. And yeah, I'll try my best to do these weekly uploads as much as I possibly can. And with all that said and done, I hope you guys have an awesome day.